Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast, and today it's our final analysis of Little Hope. We're going to find out how well, if you've seen my stream, you know how my stream ended, but we'll be mentioning our blind playthroughs, who died, who survived, and mate, let's just jump straight into it. And you know what, I was thinking for this final part, I'll throw it straight over to you. Is there anything from this final part that you wanted to discuss first, or do you want to just go chronological?
Yeah, I guess we could go chronological. I mean, one of the first things that we get after we kill Daniel, I say we like we did it deliberately. One thing I want to say though is that we get to that flashback where you speak to Abraham and you can convince him, that Mary's innocent. Now, this is one thing that, I don't really have the clarity on, so hopefully you guys in the comments can fill me in on this. But you in your stream, I saw that you tried to say Mary's innocent and Abraham didn't believe you. Now, my guess, I could be wrong in saying this is because you burnt the puppet and you didn't have the evidence to prove. So, if that's true, if that is the case, do you quite like that, the fact that it's in the game? Or were you quite frustrated that Abraham didn't believe you there?
To be honest, I'd be more praising of like the branching, because I didn't think, if that is the case, I didn't realise that the puppet choice actually reached that far. I thought that was just a symptom of the game trying to work out where your head was at that point, like whether you thought it was Mary. But if there was actual repercussions in that Abraham didn't believe you, then, you know what I mean, I'd actually praise the branching, because like we've said in previous episodes, I think one of the biggest issues with Little Hope is just how linear it is. So, of course there's going to be choices in this game, but, you compare it to some of the others, it is fairly linear. So if that is the case, mate, then no, I wouldn't be annoyed at him. I'd be sort of like, yeah, fair enough, like that choice actually meant something.
I guess it is kind of telling as well to the end, because we do know that the ending, it's just as much as like Andrew or Anthony blaming himself, as well as, potentially his little sister and Megan or Mary or whatever. So I guess, it does kind of cover that now, like I'm still kind of blaming my sister for burning down the house, etc, etc. So I can kind of see it from the story point of view, and like we say, it kind of neglects the gameplay and the characters, but yeah, the story is fantastic. So it is cool that there are these little intricacies and these little details and nods that kind of allude to the ending.
I mean, after this scene, mate, we then, we follow back with Daniel and Taylor, but essentially we all come together as a group again. And I suppose, actually there's a choice, which I'm going to bring this up because I'm pretty sure I brought this up in the last episode. You know how we mentioned the whole left and right thing? And
yeah.
was like, that's pretty naff because it's a 50-50 coin toss. There's no real sort of indicator as what the right one is here. This is the example I was on about. So you're playing as John, and it says follow sounds or follow movement. And at least there's a little bit of deduction there, because I'm pretty sure if it's follow movement, you've just see a wild animal or something like that. But gotta hold it off no further, mate. We have another death to talk about, and this one got under my skin, as you'll see in the stream, because it felt really unjust. It was what I was mentioning before, and it was that quick, that the cursor QTE one, where you've got to move it across to a specific point on the target, and then you've got to hit RT or whatever it is on whatever console you're on to then attack the creature. And as you will see, I moved it, you could see the cursor was red, and I hit that trigger, and then next thing you know, the tongue comes out, it's got it round her neck, and then the camera's zooming in to do the little character trait things over the eyeball. And I was like, what? I was like, I genuinely don't know what happened there. And I feel really hard done by, mate. Get the violins out.
Wait, what? I swear I hit that. I hit that. I hit the thing. Come on.
Nah, you know what, mate? I saw the stream or the playthrough afterwards, and I just was like, yeah, you got that. She's alive. And then her neck just snaps, and I'm like, right, oh, okay, apparently not then. So I actually feel hard done by for you there, because I thought you hit it as well. You could hear you click it on the thing. So maybe it's just a broken hitbox, maybe it's just a bit of a glitch. But one thing I want to comment on as well, and this is one thing that I kind of found funny, well, two things actually. One is that when as John you go to save her, you can either like say, oh yeah, I'll help you, or you can say, help me. And I'm like, John, what the fuck? Like, she's the one with the like monster with its tongue wrapped around her, with her neck about to get snapped. Why would John ever go, oh, help me? Like, I'm in a bit of a predicament here. I've got to save you here. And I was just like, John, this is kind of like, you're the hero of the story where you're trying to be, but that's kind of a dick thing to say. But the second thing as well afterwards is when they're walking along the trail, and like, they've just experienced 2 deaths in Daniel and Taylor, because they are pretty much back to back. And they're just walking like they don't care. And I know there is a bit of dialogue in there as if to say, oh, like, I can't believe that monster took her. I can't believe she's gone. But the facial expressions are so plain. It's like, I'm not buying into the emotions of these characters. And again, and I'm sorry if you're a Little Hope lover out there, and I'm really beating this drum, but there is more life in the prologue characters and the flashback characters than you get out of the main 5, and it's frustrating.
It really is. And you don't know whether it's down to poor writing or whether it was intentional, because obviously they weren't real in the first place. But I feel like that could be very dangerous of me, because I could just be giving them an excuse for poor writing here. But yeah, because I think back even to like in the previous game, Man and Medan, like when Conrad, if Conrad dies on the ship, the characters reunite in like this room at one point. And I think Fliss can like relay the information to Julia to say, oh, I saw Conrad's body, and you can get like some genuine emotion there. But with this, I totally get what you mean. Like, it's like the character dies, and you'll see the facial animation, be like, for a minute, and then they just sort of like default to like their normal face, and then like, come on then, let's carry on. It's like, God, yeah. Wow, like you got over that fast.
That's it, and like obviously. Skipping to the end, spoiler alert, whatnot. But I get, like, these characters aren't real, and we recently had a comment which kind of explained it quite well. You know, this might be an excuse, it might be genuine, but it's that because he's imagining these characters, the sidekicks, right, that they're kind of like almost 2-dimensional elements of themselves. So, like, if we take someone like Angela, it's just like, oh yeah, she's just like, she's got a backbone, maybe because that's what Andrew wanted her to be like. So, like, she's just that very much, like, one personality, and maybe that was a writing decision. If so, fair play. However, I can't help but think that does affect the gameplay, and we do get a dull set of characters while we're playing with it. You can't get rid of that fact.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? While we're talking about the characters at the moment, shortly after that, it's like I don't know, like, because we've had the scene about, you know, whether to condemn Mary or not, and you will get moments with John where he chips in. He's like, oh, she's guilty. You know, if we find the little girl again, we can't lose her, because, do you know what I mean? It's definitely her. And then like there's like other times when he's sort of like, oh no, you know, she's just a little girl, and I'm like, John, mate, like you're like flip-flopping on your views, and I sort of get that it's probably based on like the dialogue choices that, you know, you've made previously and stuff. It's just the consistency, like, I don't know, it just makes me laugh. I like literally from scene to scene, like this guy's view on like this little girl's changing, and it's just like a pendulum, like going from one end to the other as to whether to condemn her or not.
And it's not just John, it's Abraham as well. And it's like I was telling you before, like in one scene you're like, oh, the little girl's innocent, and then he's like, I'll not succumb to the temptation of the devil. And then the next scene, you get a flashback with him where it's the court case towards the end. And he's like, I need guidance, help me. And it's like, do you want to help or not, mate? Because like last time you just ignored our advice, and now you're straight up asking for it. So it's like, pick a team, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, we move on. We then go to the, is it like the factory? I don't even know what this building is, but it's the bit where you end up pushing the crate and you can go underground. You know, you can walk around, you're seeing different letters, you can see the picture on the wall and stuff. Obviously, in this playthrough, Daniel was dead. In my blind playthrough, this was actually where I lost Daniel. That fight, which, again, I feel like it was a weird button thing that cost me, so I don't know what happened there. But ultimately, the characters get outside, we see the little girl again, and then we have another showdown, mate. And I feel like before we get on to that point, it actually makes me remember what we said in a previous episode, where it's very much rinse and repeat. So you've got the characters, they go into a building, they explore for some clues, they head outside, there's a combat scene. And they're going into a building, they're looking around for some clues, then they head outside, then there's a combat scene. And it's just like this pattern is over and over again. You then do that with the flashbacks, which we've said have already got a little bit stale. You know, the grabbing of the arm, and then, you know, flashback scene. So by this point, it really was, it really was starting to tell. But I've got to say that I did like probably this showdown scene the best, the one with John and Angela, mate.
Yeah, and like going back to the Daniel fight before, what was interesting is, because I've never seen a playthrough where Daniel dies, and obviously he has in your playthrough. So you had John that went down there. Now I thought that was pretty interesting, but weirdly, John never got a fight. However, like, which I thought was quite cool that like John doesn't get that fight, and it might be because like his flashback didn't happen yet, so his monster wasn't released yet. I don't know, but because you didn't get a fight, it seemed so vanilla to me. Like, if that was your blind playthrough, it must have been really weird that John just fell down a hole and then instantly went outside and reunited with the group again. And it must have just been minutes of nothing. So, I don't know, like, with that being your second playthrough, or no, actually like 8th, because you've trophy run this game, so you've played this game a fuck ton of times, mate.
Yeah.
Would you say that it was quite underwhelming to see that, just to have John go down the hole and just walk back to the group with no jeopardy involved?
Oh, 100%. 100%. Because, yeah, like, it's almost sort of the same as earlier on, you know, when, like, in the theatrical cut, you play as Angela and her demons dragging her into the sewers, and you're playing as Angela. I think you even have QTEs where you're running in the sewers. You know, you're sort of getting away from your demon, but then you ultimately go down there as John, and then you walk around. It's sort of like John's just like the default guy that ends up dropping into an area for, you know, nothing to happen really. So yeah, like, you know, this is the branching, isn't it? We've had this with the Quarry. We've had this conversation before where we feel like we had very vanilla playthroughs because X event didn't happen. So you're just sort of like, oh, okay, and then you move on.
No, for sure, mate. Yeah, so like a bit problematic there. But back to your point though, with the fight scene. Yeah, it was definitely like the ultimate fight scene of the game. But you know, and it's kind of a comment I said in the last video, but I'll repeat it here. For me, it didn't work, and that is simply because I played this game in multiplayer, and like already I've told you I'm not a fan of like, whenever it switches characters, it has that slow-mo zoom in to the character while they're like panicking, running, and it kind of takes the sting out of like the moment for me a little bit. But also just the fact that because I played on multiplayer, it wasn't totally foolproof, and it basically, like, I think my housemate like was playing as my character as well because they were doing QTEs and they didn't have time to hand over the controller. And I'm not gonna lie, it led to some deaths. I lost I already lost Angela, but I lost Taylor and John at this scene. John as well, because I think I was playing as John, but afterwards he didn't barricade the door, he ran away, so we never got the heroic trait. So yeah, we lost 2 characters here, and it like wasn't to my own volition. Like I like to think I would have stayed at the door. So like a little bit of a flaw that it wasn't totally covered on a multiplayer basis.
Yeah, and you know what, like, there's really good things about it, and I think, you know, partly why John is my favourite character is just the bit, you know, he's like, oh, I'm fed up of running, and he's just like got this, you know, big sledgehammer. He's ready to fight, sort of feel like, yeah, go on, John. There's even like a couple of hero shots, like when he's whacked the demon, it's like slow mo, and he's got this angry John sort of like swinging it.
Yeah.
But it is a bit silly because the more I sort of look into it, and I'm like, what the hell's Andrew doing in this scene? I said it in the stream because like they've obviously got their demons, and there's even, I'm pretty sure there is actually a little shot at one point where you just sort of see Andrew awkwardly hanging around the edge, and I'm like, really, mate? Like, you couldn't be doing anything? You couldn't be getting to the door a lot more quickly, trying that? You know, maybe grabbing a tree branch and hitting a demon or whatever. Because in the end, John is fighting off his own demon, and then he has to go over to Angela to, hit the chain to, ultimately let her get free as well. So I just found it a little bit funny, but I'm pretty sure that one of the fans said during the stream as well that actually in shared story mode that Andrew in that moment can get some QTEs or something, which I'm interested to see what they are, because he doesn't actually have a demon, so I wonder what he can actually get up to in that fight.
What I quite like about this though is that eventually when, John can barricade the door and then the monster goes, you find out the house you're in is the old house from the prologue, the Clark family's house, right? And I do like the little odd things like, the tire outside, the drawings on the walls. And, you do end up finding more about like Megan and like the abuse she suffered from Carver. And I do think it was quite powerful actually finding out all the stuff, mate, about how while like in the prologue, the parents are like, oh yeah, something's wrong with the girl. And it's kind of like there was actually nothing wrong with her. She just was a traumatized girl who was like asking for help or trying to show that. And I don't know, that actually struck a chord with me a little bit. And I felt, I'm very negative of this game, but I have to give praise where praise is due. And I actually really like that as kind of a message, to be honest.
I really do. And this is why I'm so frustrated with Little Hope. Because it's literally, you know what? It's reminded me of a point I was going to say. And it's this, is that for me, Little Hope would have been better as a book. And
oh yeah, big time.
The reason I'm saying that is because literally it's what we've almost been alluding to, or like just been flat out saying in other episodes. On a surface level, it's just not very entertaining. You're wandering around, there's not a lot to look at because it's foggy. You're playing as characters that are not that great, and you're essentially waiting for the plot to happen to you. If this was a book and you were like in chapters jumping between different timelines, you got the different characters, just really get into the heads of the characters more in a book, which I think would have been brilliant for these characters, because boy did they need it. Like, they didn't have that much depth at all. So I think that would really lend itself. But to come back to your point about Megan, Mary, whatever you want to call her, yeah, I mean, I've wrote it down here, like bit where you find like the modern guide to successful parenting in the house. I remember when I played this in my blind playthrough, maybe I must have missed it, but I didn't even realise that that she was adopted. Like, I'm pretty sure she's adopted, right? But like, they're obviously complaining about the girl, but this is neglect, isn't it? Like, she's fallen into the arms of Carver because of neglect ultimately, and that's why obviously she's been acting up the way she has, because she's been wanting attention. And obviously the clue itself is very long, but if you like read it, it does sort of like go into like some detail on that front. So it's there are so many big themes and so many like poignant points of interest and conversation that you can get from Little Hope, which is fantastic, the complexity of the story. But as I say, on a surface level, it's so bland, which is why you get such a mixed bag experience from it.
I completely agree, and I think that is the title of the video. This game should have been a book. So maybe it'd be that one. But yeah, no, completely, mate. Like you say, the twist at the end, all the details, the intricacies are great. But it would work as a book, right? Because in a book, you wouldn't have to kind of like, walk around, look at like dead roads, picking up clues. With a book, that would kind of be fed to you. So yeah, this game should have been a book. Like, it's like, one of those games that, really almost leaves gameplay at the door. So yeah, it just should be. One thing afterwards, mate, is that, because obviously, we're going around this house. It's pretty cool to see it again, but it follows the same pattern. We'll get Angela's demon crawl underneath the floorboards. And your stream did make me laugh, because you said the quote which every British person says if you get like layer of shit added on top of each other. And when you have that final one that happens, you say the quote which is, "I'll have a day off." I did really like that moment, mate. That made me chuckle.
Have a day off.
But yeah, like, I mean, there is the bit as well that I've mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it now. But you do find that gold picture frame, House of Ashes, with Rachel falling, which is a nice little, obviously, nod to what the next game's going to be. We do ultimately come to this flashback scene, don't we, where we're back, we're in the courtroom, and, you know, whatever the choice was, I mean, obviously, in this case, you just chose to destroy the puppet, but again, from a story point of view, I'm going to praise it because it again mirrors the prologue. You know, it doesn't have to go that way, of course, but I just love that in this particular story, in this particular stream, that it sort of marries with the prologue, because ultimately the puppet gets knocked down, which is exactly like the doll on the hob, and then the house goes up in flames, which is the exact same with the court. So again, it's I don't know, I find it so frustrating because there's lots to love, but I'm ultimately left wanting more.
Nah, big time. And there's just like, it's crazy the amount of like this court case, how it affects the ending, because you have all these little, almost like free endings, right? Like, you know, there's Andrew could get arrested, like he can be completely fine, but then there's the really dark endings where he can have the gun and he can turn on himself. And in my one, the one I got is that I never wanted to blame Mary because I never suspected her for a second. But because I never found the clue of Carver's, like, you know, satanic writing or whatever, the devil worship, I never had the option to go for him, because I think the best option you can do is have the option to say, I'll check the book, and then he can get reprimanded. I never had that, so I think I had something in between. And I think it's like what you had on your stream, where it's just burn the puppet. So, like, almost like no one gets punished, actually. So, like, Mary doesn't, but, like, Carver doesn't either. So I guess that leads to, like, the arrest ending. Now, for me, it made sense, because, like I've established, I kind of had this housemate who, like, not only shot at, like, you know, like, Vince himself, but, like, I mean, Angela at one point, meaning that in his, like, you know, in reality, you probably shot at thin air. So, like, it made sense that he got arrested for me. And hopefully people in the comments can clarify this one as well, because, like, I am just a clueless individual in general. But why the fuck did you get arrested in your game?
This is something I'll happily throw to the comments as well. Because that's the thing, I didn't have the gun, and I didn't... If you play out is in what happened, obviously we know it's all in Thingy's head. You've got Vince walking down a road. He sees an older man clearly freaking out, which he then runs into a church and presumably barricades the door. What on earth does that merit calling the police? And then the thing is, it's not even like you can get around it and say, oh, it's trespassing or something like that, because at the end he goes, there he is, there's the murdering son of a bitch or whatever, and you're sort of like, well, hang on a minute. This guy, he got accused of the past, because as we know from the prologue and from the clues early on in the game, he does go to a jail cell because he writes on the wall that he's lost everything. It presumably got let go for it. You know, he's now got a career as a bus driver and he's driving around Little Hope. So who is he supposedly have murdered? You know, he didn't fire a gun at you into a building, and I don't get it. I generally don't get why I got arrested in that particular moment. So yeah, if you're listening, do let us know, because it was a bit of an odd one, to say the least.
For sure. And it's one of those ones where it's like, maybe Carver has to get reprimanded for you not to end up in a cop car. But yeah, like, weirdly, there is a bit of a thing there that doesn't quite tally up. But nonetheless, mate, I mean, the twist happens, right? And, like, I mean, we always compare it to the Man and Medan twist. But you're a really big fan of this twist, aren't you? Like, the way it's shot as well, where you're with everyone else. For me, it was just Andrew and Daniel. But then you find out that Daniel's not even there for me. And then we indeed were the bus driver the whole time. Whether you want to call it kind of like too complicated, too murky, it still you can't deny that this twist has an impact.
It does. It really does. So this is an interesting one for me, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, the twist. Like, you didn't see it coming. You know, you think the whole find the bus driver, oh, he's going to be somewhere in Little Hope. No, you've been playing as the bus driver. and it's like some. It's called DID, isn't it? The mental, the sort of dissociative identity disorder or something. You know, where you've got multiple personalities. It's sort of coming along that sort of line, and I just thought it was so impactful, and I was like, wow. It's only when I then went online, and I think this is where sort of my view got slightly influenced, was that you then think, but actually that means the replayability, like you know the characters aren't there, so it sort of diminishes everything, every clue that you found, because it's just in someone's head. So like I can almost see it from both angles, but again, if I'm going to sort of lean to the positive, because I do think I lean to the positive slightly more, is that it's sort of the same when you read a book, or you read it, or you rewatch a TV series or something like that. You then see the little nuggets. So like for me, it's the faces thing. So like Anthony's trauma, he put all the faces on the people. That's why in the flashbacks there's blank faces, because he can only bring the faces in from that particular moment. You know, the guy found him with the cigarettes or the matches, sorry. He then becomes the judge in the flashback, and so on. Which I just think is really, really clever. As I've mentioned already, the parallels between the prologue and stuff that happens in the witch trial segments and in the present day, all really clever. Like there's lots of little things for you to go back and find when you like replay this game, but I just think it got done dirty by the Medan twist. We'll do a video on this in the future where we see what you guys think as well, but I think if people were to be honest, I think that if this twist was in isolation, maybe in a different season, maybe it still probably would have got hate because of the fact it's a fake out. I think it's because of the Medan twist that really gave it hate that it got, because we've seen the same thing basically.
Yeah, like so I do love the twist in hindsight, but the fact that Man of Medan was a fake out, and then Little Hope was the second game, and that was a fake out. And luckily, like House of Ashes and Devil in Me didn't do that, but there was an element where when House of Ashes came out, we're all sat there thinking, all right, so what's the fake out? Are these vampires imaginary? Like, is this war like, you know, not even happening? You know, so there was just that element of waiting for the fake out in House of Ashes, and I do think, yeah, you're not wrong. I feel like Little Hope should have been game 3, game 6, game 8, maybe. I don't know, like, because like if you start with a fake out and you follow it up with a fake out, you're gonna start to get suspicions that you are a one-trick pony. And a lot of the reviews for Little Hope ended up getting 6 out of 10s, and a lot of the reviews said stuff along the lines of, oh, another predictable ending for DPA. So, you know, like, it definitely harmed it. But if we really tried to just get rid of Man of Medan and look at it on an individual basis, the twist is brilliant. Not perfect, because there are things we mentioned, like how is Andrew imagining what Taylor and Daniel are getting up to on the different side of town, picking up certain clues. It doesn't quite make sense totally to me. But when you look at, like you said, the parallels, the fact that, like the judge is the guy who caught him with the matches, and everything as well, like Vince, who we've not really talked about, right? The fact that, like, Tanya was the only one who had fresh flowers on the grave. When you piece all the little puzzles together like that, it is actually a very beautiful story. And not only a beautiful story, but a really powerful one that speaks about sort of, like, trauma, guilt, just, like, lots of stuff like that. So, yeah, like, I really do tip my hat off to Little Hope. But, yeah, it's just one of those ones as well where brilliant idea, maybe sloppy execution.
I think so. Even another example as well, you know, when it's like running through the flashback and like you've got that bit where Vince is in the bar and you hear that line, he's like, oh no, I'm not gonna have a drink, I need to keep a clear head. Just like the irony of like that moment, and it's just like, again, it's just like this little nugget that when you look back, I think it's just so good to see. But yeah, as we've said, ultimately it does fall short for all of the reasons that we've said throughout this series, really.
For sure. And I think in conclusion, like, because I've trashed this game a lot, right? And like, I want to say, like, so far it is my least favorite DPA game. it's probably like my least favorite Supermassive game that I've played, considering I've only played like the main 2 blockbusters and the DPA games. Oh, actually, and Hidden Agenda, but I don't know which one I'd say was worse because they're different kettle of fish. But I'm not saying Little Hope's a bad game. I'm saying it's kind of maybe more like a mediocre game. Like it's like a C tier game, maybe D if I'm being really negative. I didn't hate playing this game. I still enjoyed it. There were just a lot of negatives about it, and it did leave a sour taste in my mouth in certain areas. Yeah, I just I definitely don't regret that, I played it. And it to me, a bad game is like Telltale Expanse, which we've covered on the channel. Like, that game to me is criminal for the factor that, like, it didn't have choices in a choice-based game for certain episodes, I still enjoyed Little Hope. It just, quality fell short in major key areas for me. But I still, like, a lot of people say it's their favourite game with their favourite setting and they love the message. And I respect that because, like, I love the fact that this game has its fans.
Yeah, no, and for myself, I think it comes back to what I said earlier. It makes a brilliant book. The story, and this is the weirdest thing, like, you can't believe I'm saying this, but like, the story is the best, but the game is the worst of like the DPA. And that's not to say it's bad. I'm not saying Little Hope's trash or whatever, but the game is the worst. The story is the best. It's just, for me that's bonkers, because you'd think that there would be a tie-in with both things, but somehow it seems to be.
And I think our conclusion of saying this game should have been a book is so telltale by the fact that you've said, yeah, like, the worst game but the best story, right? So it's weird. I've never looked at a game and said this should have been a book, but yeah, for the first time ever I'm saying that, and that's with Little Hope. So
okay guys, so yeah, that was our final analysis of Little Hope, but don't worry, we're not going to leave Little Hope there just yet. Of course, do put in your suggestions for any videos that you would like to see. But in terms of ideas we've got at the minute, we're certainly going to do one on the twist. We want to see what you guys think on it, whether it's the influence of Madan on the twist, whether you love the twist, anything really. And the other one we're thinking of as well is just like comparing sort of like the main cast to the prologue characters, because Liam's got some really interesting points on that end as well. But yeah, if you found us for the first time and you sort of like all this sort of stuff, quizzes, analysis, discussions, then do subscribe to the channel, because we're doing a lot more of it, and of course we'll be doing it for season 2 as well. Now, the eagle-eyed of you will know that we have now covered all of the DPA games. We've covered Until Dawn, we've covered The Quarry, but as Liam mentioned, we do still have Hidden Agenda as well yet. So let us know in the comments if you'd like for us to do that very soon as well. Thanks for joining, guys, and we will see you in the next video.
see you guys in the future.
Have a day off.